really about like navigating life, right? Like and I like the term when you're talking about like seas and ships, the navigation process.
Sure.
Life is a journey, right? And we're navigating to the best of our abilities with the tools that we're given. And sometimes the greatest tool of life is suffering.
Yeah.
You know? How did you get where you're at today? Like, how did it start?
It's a nice transition.
Yeah.
You know, I never thought I'd be in this field. You know, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I never thought that this was going to be the way that I make a life, make a living, find a purpose. But let's just say through the struggles of life, and I'm an immigrant, so I was born in the country of Iran during a time of war, and we were able to get out of the country. This is Iran-Iraq war.
What year is this?
This is 1983. I was born. The war was in 85, 88.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, you could hear sirens in the street. You have to go to bomb bunkers because bombs are coming from the air.
Oh, crazy.
I mean, you talk about like anxiety, you know, not just my anxiety, collective anxiety of the society.
Oh, yeah.
But we were fortunate enough to get to the U.S. and I lived here, you know, till I was about from 5 years old to 10 years old. I'm in America.
Yeah.
Acclimated to the American life. AYSO soccer.
Yeah, buddy. I was a coach. That's what I did. I was just going to tell you that.
That's right, man. Sunny Delight, you know, in the Saturday morning cartoons. I was an American kid.
Yeah, right.
And then when I was 10, we went back to Iran.
Oh, no.
And it was a weird transition because I went from being one of the smartest kids in the class to not being able to read and write overnight. Different language.
Right.
And I was there till about 16 years old. And those are formative years. You know?
Right.
And when I came back to the U.S. at 16, first and foremost, LAX is the dirtiest airport in the world, but I got on my knees and I kissed the ground of LAX because I was back, baby.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know, and that was kind of where my whole, you know, anxiety and trying to escape and find relief from anxiety started. You walk into school, I had really bad adolescent acne, 3,000 kids in the high school. I don't know anybody.
Wow.
You know, just like social, it's like a blanket of anxiety.
Yeah.
Man. And then I found it. When I found substances, took it all away.
Game on. All of a sudden, how did it affect the idea of being accepted? Like, how did like alcohol and drugs really, like you said, you came here with this anxiety. You were like thrust from this like a place that had like that was war torn like environment. Like you went right back to it, right? And all the controversy. You come back in. Now you've got all this anxiety. How did alcohol and drugs make you feel?
It made me feel the way I always wanted to feel, but couldn't feel. You know, it's I felt detached, separated, alone, and I saw the kids over there, and I wanted to go talk to them, but I didn't have the courage.
Right.
You know, so I was too. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they judge me? What if they think I'm not cool? And all of a sudden, substances, you don't even care. So you walk up, and I'm cracking jokes, and I'm like, wow, I just made people laugh.
You have arrived.
I get invited to place. I'm like, wow, I got invited back. And it was just like a form to be, you know, accepted by those who I thought wouldn't accept me without drugs and alcohol. But the problem was I didn't know any different, you know, and once you get the taste of it and, you know, just like a lot of people experience some type of losses and traumas in you know, adolescent years and the addiction kept to increase.
Right.
The intensity started to go up. The frequency would go up. The type of substances would go up because I had no other coping skills. I had no moves. And coming from an Iranian background, there's not that much like understanding about addictions. Just stop doing it. It's okay. Just go to school, go to work. You're going to be okay. There was no therapeutic component of why is all this happening, right? So by the time I'm 24, 25 years old, I'm lost. I used to tell people I thought I was an Italian mobster from New York. But deep down, I was just an insecure Persian boy from Iran.
Yeah.
It's really funny. When you tell people you're an Italian mobster from New York, it's cool until you meet someone from New York.
Right, right. Well, so you were like selling dope. What were you doing?
Yeah, I tried to survive, we'll call it.
You tried to survive,
so 100%. I mean, you would get some, thinking you're going to make some money, use it all.
Sure.
Get in a little rut, you know, find a way to bail yourself out. But I just went from short-term jobs to short-term jobs, never being able to, you know, failure to launch, as we call it.
Right, yeah.
And I dropped out of college, you know, at a young age because I said I have street smarts, man. I don't have the book smarts aren't for me. I'm a street smart guy, but I was just dumb. And so 25 years old, I finally, you know, decided. I tried to move first. This is a funny story. So I moved from Orange County, from Newport Beach to Carbondale, Illinois.
Really? Like on your own? Like you made that decision, not your parents? You did it all by yourself?
By myself. Because the problem here, see, it was all my people around here. It wasn't me.
Okay.
So I was like, I got to get away from these people. But then I learned everywhere you go,
you're bringing yourself with you.
There you are.
That's the saying. Yeah, there you are.
So I'm in Carbondale, Illinois. I have a cousin there. I call him the King of Carbondale because Carbondale, 7 miles long.
Okay.
It's got 2 subways. He owns both subways. And for some reason, people eat a lot of Subway out there. So he's like a healthy guy. He took me in.
Oh, like the Subway I thought you meant Subways, like the things that you travel in. Subway sandwiches. Okay,
man, everyone eats Subway sandwiches.
All right,
he owns both of them. He's got a monopoly on the town.
All right,
he's
nice.
doing well for himself.
Yeah, he is.
So he takes me in, and like the first night out, I say, I'm going to go out to the bars, but I'm not going to do any drugs. Cocaine was my thing, and I said, I'm just going to drink. I have a couple drinks in me. I asked the girl, anyone that's got any cocaine?
Yeah.
Within 30 minutes, I had the same people, places, and things that I just ran from. Same ones, man. And it took me down this really dark cycle because I was far away from everything I knew. Eventually got back, and this is kind of to answer your question, how did you get in this voyage? So I finally go to this rehab with the guy that, rest in peace, just passed away last year for an interview. And by the time I left that interview, he said, you need to come check in tonight because I was abusing alcohol and Xanax at the time at heavy dosages. Right. He said, you need to check in. You got to go to some detox residential. And I say, hey, I'll come back, but I'll come back tomorrow because alcoholics, drug addicts, busiest people in the world with nothing to do.
Right. I get it.
So that night I went, I overdosed. I ended up in the hospital. This is June 12th of 2008. And luckily I survived. In the morning when I woke up in the hospital, my mom was there, and it was a weird scene because I hadn't been, in talking terms with them. They had the Al-Anon boundary stuff going on. And I saw just how old and defeated she looked in that moment. And for a second, I said, what am I doing to this person? Like, it wasn't even about me. I didn't even care if I lived or died. I said, what? She never signed up for this because she's a good person. And there's a quote that I love and I love to share with people. It says, when suffering loses its value, healing becomes instantaneous. The suffering I was holding on my whole life, man, and it was a lot of it. It lost its value to my mom's that moment.
Not to interrupt, that is such a powerful statement because you use the term value. And I have this share that I talk about too all the time because until something has value, right, and there's a monetary tone that comes with value. So anything that has value is worth something. 100%. And that's the one component that has to take place because once it's worth it, you've heard the saying, is it worth it? Yeah. Meaning, does it have value? Mm-hmm. And will you buy into it? Because when something has value and it's worth it to you, guess what you do? You buy it.
100%.
And once you buy it, you know what happens? You own it. Mm-hmm. And that is like, when I heard you just say that, I said, and when suffering loses its value, and so because it's crazy how we have this high tolerance for pain and suffering, and that somehow our lifestyle has put value on that, and it becomes, and it's not even so much, it's the drugs and alcohols, the disease has disguised itself. And now we're chasing after this lifestyle and these choices that we've made, and we believe that there's value to it. Like you said earlier, it's like until we no longer value that, nothing takes place. Yeah. Because
this is awesome. I mean, I'm happy that you use the same type of analogy to demonstrate the worth of something.
Yeah, it's all about worth.
I'm really happy to hear that.
What makes it worth it?
So over the years, when I say this, people say, well, how does suffering have value? This is a question that always comes up. I say, man, anything we hold on to has value to us. Everything I was holding on to.
Powerful. Anything we hold on to has value to us. That is so huge.
If I put my hand in my pocket and I pull out a $100 bill, what am I going to do with a $100 bill? Right back in my pocket. If I put my hand in my pocket and pull out a receipt from yesterday, right in the trash.
Yeah.
We only hold on to things we have value for. So how does suffering have value? Well, let's say I had a tumultuous relationship with my father. Let's say I felt like I had low self-esteem. I was holding on to all these things. Every drop of alcohol that went down my throat, I was justified.
Yeah.
Every time I punched a wall or I dropped a class, I was justified. I could rationalize it. But in that moment, when it lost its value, I just couldn't do it anymore in that moment. Now the thing becomes, well, how do you just let go of it? That's the hard part, right? So when the pain of holding on becomes so much, we find ways to start letting go. And sometimes the little things in life, man, I can hold a 5-pound dumbbell, and it's not that heavy. I carry that 5-pound dumbbell for 2 or 3 days. My entire forearm is shaking to the point I have to let go of it. So I go to this back to the counselor.
Yeah.
Man, the way this human being made me feel in one interaction, one conversation, I left his office and I said, one day I will make another human being feel the way this guy made me feel. I've never experienced it before till that moment. And that's been my driving force behind everything I do, to create that same feeling of acceptance, of love, of unconditional love, of non-judgment, of just holding innate value with every person I meet. That's my why.
There's like another saying I have listening to you talk about it, and it's like the 2 most important days of your life, the day you're born and the day you find out why. And that sounds like the day you found out why. Yeah. Because once you find out the most important is purpose, that you wanted to make somebody else, you wanted to help somebody else feel the way you felt. That is like the same thing that happened to me. Exactly the reason I'm even sitting here talking today is because I had that experience, and it dawned on me immediately that I found out I was no longer that person who had that hole that he was trying to fill, because he'd found the purpose he'd been looking for his whole life, and that was to help another person find the kind of freedom and the life that I have today as a result of. And I heard you say something earlier about when I asked you what your sobriety date was, and we're going to talk about that in a second, because when I found my sobriety and that day, and I realized what it was going to do for me, it wasn't just about total abstinence, and that's the thing I was going to talk to you about right now, because there's more to it than total abstinence. My sobriety date holds so much more value to me, and you brought that up, even the words I just used, it holds more value to me than just abstinence. Yeah. So, and that's when I found my purpose, because purpose came with abstinence, and that purpose was to help another person achieve the lifestyle, not just the sobriety, but the lifestyle I have today. And it's like we're on this mission. We're down the street. We have two very similar companies, and we're on the same mission, and we found the same purpose. But I thought something was interesting, really interesting, when you came in here and I asked you what your sobriety date was. What was your response?
Yeah, so June 13th, 2008 would be considered a sobriety date.
Yeah.
However, I tried to avoid just highlighting that date and associating it directly to abstinence, because you and I have been around for a little bit, and we've seen people that can abstain from drugs and alcohol for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. However, who they are, how they live their life, how they go about their day to day, the impact they have in the community, the impact they have on the lives of others might not be anything.
It's exactly what happens. A lot of times you're like, oh, what is this guy even doing here?
So for me, I actually use it. I say that's the day I changed my life around.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that's a deep thing. Because it's not just I changed the way I talk. I changed the way I walk. I changed the things I put into my body. I changed the people I expose myself to. I changed the way I spend my energy, my vitality. I changed it all.
Yeah.
And as a result of that all changes, because the one thing you got to change, what's that one thing?
Everything. Yeah, right.
As a result of that, I have a life that's full. So sometimes I really want to almost warn people that just stopping the use of drugs and alcohol doesn't mean all your problems go away. The only thing that gets better are your problems related to drugs and alcohol go away.
Well, there's a saying, like, one of the things, I'm a big AA 12-step guy. Yeah. I've been really into that book. Most of my sobriety, I've been always dissecting and discussing and debating the different ideas associated with some of the readings, some of the pages, some of the chapters. And there's this one chapter very specific about the spiritual experience. Yeah. And this kind of goes along. And the first thing I thought about was, there's much more to just this whole thing than abstinence. And they kind of talk about that. And they talk about this thing we call the spiritual awakening. As a result of the steps, right, we have this spiritual awakening. And in the back of that book, there is a description of what that spiritual awakening actually is. And it talks about the personality change. So this is like, in effect, what takes place after I stop ingesting alcohol and drugs because I want to get that feeling that I get when I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. But what happens as a result of working the steps or just going on this journey, and that's what it is, that my personality starts to change. It's not just, hey, I'm abstinent. Now I'm thinking of other people. I'm kind. I'm becoming tolerant. I'm becoming less critical and judgmental. I mean, I still favor judgmentalism and criticism and selfishness. I mean, I don't favor it, but I mean, if I was to be honest, the thing that I'm going to struggle with most of my sobriety is that these flaws in my character are always going to resurface they're always going to remanifest themselves. But the goal is, how do I become aware enough of them that I have this new life that's not just about total abstinence, but it's about being so many things that I guess the principles that I was, void of was like honesty, integrity. I was void of, forgiveness, and really selflessness, and all these things they talk about in 12 steps. How have you seen, what are some of the things that you've implemented in your life that enabled you to effectively transform from, hey, it's not just about abstinence, but it probably took you some time to come up with this ideas that one that you just described to us. What caused you to come up with this new definition of the day that you changed your life.
You know, so it brings us something to, I think will really align with the message of this channel of the whole, the navigation and the journey.
Right.
So I believe that life is almost like being on a sailboat. I genuinely believe this.
Right.
And in a sailboat, we all know that sailboats start somewhere and they end somewhere. And unless something weird happens in the middle of the ocean, they always get to their destination, right? But what's the thing in sailboats that's common, man? Here's the thing. You actually cannot control the direction of the wind. There's only one thing you can control in a sailboat, and that's the sails. You can set your sails.
Yeah.
And that takes me to the next point, which will answer your question, is your direction in life, in recovery, in transformation is more important than your speed. The direction is more important than the speed. It doesn't matter how fast you go in this journey. And that's where I see a lot of people have a problem with and challenge with. First, they try to control all the external forces that they can't control.
Right.
And they get frustrated, they get resentful. And when you do that, you don't focus on yourself. Second, they want to get somewhere faster than they actually can. And when they don't, they get frustrated, they feel lost, and they go right back to where they came from. So those two things of just focusing on what I can control and just taking it literally day by day at a very slow pace, but having faith and confidence that by doing so, I will get to that destination has what really been the X factor. So when I went back to school, this is a good story actually, community college, Saddleback Community College, place that I, was able to not really finish school, but I went back at 25 years old, right? I had a lot of fear. And I go back in there and I tell the lady I want to be a therapist one day to be like that guy that helped me. Yeah. She's like, that's a 7-year journey.
Yikes.
I was like, all right, well, what do I have to take first? And, so I went back to college, and this I want to really demonstrate the power of transformation. I go to college and I don't want to be in these classes. I don't know how to be a student. I don't, I'm uncomfortable in my own skin again. And I keep leaving classes in the middle of it. One day I'm leaving class, this teacher says, hey, where are you going? And
again, in the middle of the class?
Yeah, in the middle of the class. And I'm the same guy, busiest person in the world with nothing to do.
Right.
I mean, I'm just a little bit abstaining from drugs and alcohol at this point, but I haven't really recovered yet. And I said, I got to go, man. And he's like, can I tell you something? He said, every time you walk out of class, you quit on yourself before you give yourself a chance to succeed. And I was like, I still walked out. I took 2 steps and I was like, quit on myself before I give myself a chance to succeed. I made a U-turn, came right back in the class. I never left the class again for 7 years. And this is where the story gets good. Last semester, I taught my first class at Saddleback Community College.
Just this last semester?
This upcoming semester, I'm teaching 2.
Nice.
And
oh my
and God forbid, hope. I'm very hopeful about this. Yeah. In spring of 2025, I'm probably going to be a full-time teacher at Saddleback in the same program that I got kicked out of.
Wow, that's powerful transformation right there.
It took me. People say, "Well, you just got lucky." Man, it took me a voyage.
Yeah.
Of patience. Of one day at a time, of slow, just trusting the process, controlling the things I can control, and just being patient, man.
So life, like the saying about life being a journey and navigating all the, it's once you make the decision, right, that you're going to change everything. It's almost one of the things that you were talking about. I never thought I would be sitting here today doing what I'm doing today. I mean, if you go back in time and you talk to anybody that knew me in the past, I mean, this is like so far-fetched. It's like this has got to be like we're living in some kind of like, I don't know, make-believe world if Rich Seidel is actually doing the recovery, doing this. I mean, just the fact that I'm talking about recovery with you right now and the journey that we go on from the time, really tracing back to like the stuff that you had to go through from the time you were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, coming to America, leaving America, coming back, and then trying to escape self is what we do, and then learning how to embrace self through the process and really getting always this redirection that's taking place because of other people. Now, and this is the part where we talk about how along the journey, like the encounters that you've had, the people that have come into your life that were transformational. And one of the things that you said was you talked about this counselor because literally this person had inspired you in a way, obviously, because where you're at now in your life stemmed from at this point you found purpose. If there's people out there in the audience right now, and let's say their family members, maybe they're going to share this video with somebody, and I hope they do because what they're going to see is a person who was hopeless, right? That now has been transformed and is on this journey of helping people like tool up, suit up, show up, and navigate with success to get to their destination, and becoming that therapist, that person that inspired you. How many other people came into your life that helped navigate the journey that you're on as of today?
Yeah, you know, it's teachers appear when the student's ready.
Yeah. All right.
So there's certain people that came in my life at different times that if they would have came in a little bit sooner, I probably wouldn't have heard them or seen them. If they would have came in a little bit later, I probably didn't need them, but they came in right at the right moment. However, the gift of desperation, you know,
Open the doors.
Open the doors. It's I love that because why is it called the gift of desperation? I'm sure you know this, but the gift box has something really fantastic inside of it. You open the gift up, there's this key inside, and that key, the key of willingness.
Willingness.
I pick that thing up, and it opens up almost any door I need to.
You know what's so wild is like I think when we talk about people that are in the contemplative stages of recovery, you know, when they're still pre-contemplative, contemplative, and you know, what happens is people they look at the box, they don't know what's in it, and they just look at it from a distance, and they don't even want to like bother. It's like the gift of life, the opportunity that's inside that box. When you open it though, all it is a key, and you don't even know what door it unlocks. You don't see it for what it's worth. Yeah. And again, there's that word, the worth, the value. And even in the beginning, I don't think any of us that are on this journey singly or together in fellowship or community really understands until a little bit later as they go down the path. What was the most, at this point, like you started out, you said what you've been with basically with Buckeye over there for what, 8, 9 years? 12 years now.
Yeah, prior to that, I was doing DUI schools. DUI schools was my first job becoming a counselor.
Okay. And then, so you got your degree in your KDAC, drug and alcohol counseling, and then you started doing DUI school?
And then I got my bachelor's and master's while I was doing DUI school.
Okay, got it.
And it was great. I mean, I got to work with people. I mean, that's the most resistant group of clients you can deal with. Nobody wants to be there. They associate you with the cop that arrested them, with the judge that sentenced them. They have a resentment the moment they look at you. But, you know, 2 hours every other week with them, they eventually start to realize you're doing it for the right reasons. And I learned a lot there. You know, I really did.
Hey, so earlier you were talking about, I read on your bio there, you were talking about coaching and stuff like that. And where I go, we could share. I mean, I did a little coaching too. Yeah. Like, how did you end up becoming a coach?
So I played high school basketball.
Okay.
And I was a decent basketball player, you know, not good enough for college, but it was a place that I felt I belonged. And then I graduated high school, and then I kind of got lost in life, as we talked about earlier. When I was 25 years old, after I got clean, I called our coach, my old head coach, and said, hey, I want to I've been told to do some service work. I've been told to kind of, be of service. Can I come just be a part of the program, sweep the floors, just be a wallflower? He said, of course. I told him I'm struggling. About 60 days later, the head freshman coach wanted to retire because his son was about to be a freshman. He didn't want to coach his kid. It was going to damage the relationship. Yeah. So he asked me, he's like, Parham, you want to be the freshman coach? And I'm like faced with a dilemma. I'm like, oh man, that means I can't relapse. That means I can't. I'm pretty much.
So wait, how long he been like
couldn't
sober?
have been more than 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like summertime. School started. You know, at that point.
Yeah.
And so now I said yes without even thinking. I said yes. I thought about it for a second. I'm like, yes, contrary action. And then it was the best thing that happened because I had a bus full of kids that looked at me like a role model and someone I couldn't let them down.
Right.
And so I did the freshman team for 7 years in a row. 1 year we went 29-0. I got all the pictures in my office. You know,
nice.
And then I
so
got my
wait, you did it for how many years?
7 years in a row.
7 years in a row. First
and then
place.
I took a year off when I got my master's, and I went back. And for the past 8 years, I've been the assistant varsity coach. I still am. And I kind of help the kids now with like mental health and sports psychology, and just kind of helping them deal with the stressors of life. I put them in circles. I make them breathe. I make them meditate. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I think. Well, you know what's funny is I have a very similar. Now I didn't do 7 years of any coaching, but my whole life I'd played soccer, and I was like, one day I'm gonna coach soccer. That was my dream. I would see these other coaches and their sons, and they would be like the dynamic. You know, the dad's the coach, their first place team, their son's the best player on the team, and there's just this core group of guys, and it's just great. And see, I grew up in a family where my dad, he came to one soccer game in 12 years, you know, and after the game too, I remember him come up to me going, hey, you're pretty good at this. Like, and I was just grateful that he came, but it wasn't like me and my father, we didn't have that kind of, he wasn't a sport athlete or anything like that whatsoever. But I always had it in my mind when I had a son, I was going to coach soccer, but alcohol and drugs had its way with me, and all those things didn't happen the way I was hoping it would as a kid. But lo and behold, after I'd gotten out of jail, this is years after prison, jails, institutions, the whole 9 yards, I'd gotten out of jail and I'd lost custody of my son. He was 9 years old, and he went to live with his mom in Costa Mesa. And when I got out of jail, he was signed up, and he was signed up for soccer. And honestly, I was pissed. Because I could never get him to do anything. And somehow his mom, who wasn't even really a part of his life, she was and she wasn't. I'm not going to say she wasn't because she was a phenomenal mom to him. But there was a period of time where he was just kind of like me and my son. But when I got arrested and had to go to jail that last time, he went to full custody with his mom. And then she got him into soccer. And I was like, I'm supposed to be the one that does that. But I went with him to his first soccer practice. And the commissioner was there. And I won't say I'm not going to say where this was. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But he came up there and he said, hey, listen, guys, we're going to have to cancel your team. Apparently the father, the parent that was going to be the coach can no longer coach. So, we're going to have to dismantle this team because this league this was the B team. So which really was the runts, the people who weren't really, there's the A team and the B team and AYSO or whatever. And so they were just going to cancel this team. Unless, he said, somebody wants to coach the team. Now, I had just gotten out of jail about a month or two ago. I'm still on probation, and I have like 4 felonies, the whole 9 yards. Like I'm just, that guy. I got like half my grill is missing, and everything. And when he said, unless there's somebody who wants to be a coach, I go, hey, I could probably coach the team. And then one of the mothers goes, oh, I'll be the team mom. Team mom. Yeah. I'll be the team mom. And she was a team mom before, and so she goes, we'll work together. We can keep this team alive. And so the guy said, all right, hey, it sounds like we got a team, you guys. Okay, good. You guys, start practice next week. And then he looked at me and said, but before you do this, go online and you're going to have to fill out like the coaching. There's a form at ayso.com, blah, 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 blah. And immediately I knew what was going to come up. They're going to do the felony background check. And the thing about it was, I went home and I pulled up and I started filling out, and it came up and I saw it down there. And I remembered when the guy was talking to me, he smelled like alcohol. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I get it. It was like in the area we're at, that's kind of like, he was the commissioner of the league, right? Kind of like, he looked like an important guy in the community. He looked like it was a wealthy area. So he looked like one of those guys, had a really nice car. He looked like he's one of the guys that goes out with the boys at lunch, has a few drinks, goes back to the office, comes back, and because I could smell the alcohol on him, like really smell it. You know what I mean? So I came up with this great idea because I knew by now at 7 o'clock that he'd be like a little bit, probably even a little more buzzed. So I called him up and I said, hey, check this out. I was just on the website and I noticed it came up a felony, and I just said, hey, I just recently got a DUI and I'm on probation. And then I went silent. And all of a sudden he goes, you know what? He goes, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and fill out the paperwork, bring it to me at the next practice, and we're good to go. And that was it. And I never heard a word from the guy again. And that's kind of like how I got into, and we ended up winning every single game. And we were like the bad news bears of of the soccer, because our kids are all, let's tell this one last story because it's kind of funny.
Feel free, man.
This was like the highlight of my life. Honestly, to be like your coach, was the highlight of my life this year. Of all the things that I've ever done in my life, coaching the soccer team was so phenomenally enriching. It's incredible to even like when I love telling the story. Our first game, we went out to the field, and all our kids, I'm coming out in my shorts, I got my clipboard, and my kids are following me, and we're walking out on the field, and I see the other team, right? And the other team, the coach has got like the team they look like a club team. This is AYSO. These guys look like club soccer where they're all wearing matching like running suits, and the coach has got the same suit on, and he's got his whistle, and he's standing in the middle, right? And he's kicking balls, and they're lined up on both sides of the goal, and they're taking shots on goal. And I'm like, wow, look at these guys. Oh my God. Hey, you guys get over. I go, get over we better get over there and start doing some exercises. Get over to the goal. Let's line it up. And I turn around and I look, and my whole team's gone. And I'm like, where'd my team go? And I look around, and we're at one, elementary school, and I look over way across the field. they took off. Apparently, I was walking in front of them, and they took off, and they're all over in the sandbox playing on the jungle gym. I'm I'm yelling at those guys, get over here, you know. And that was that was our first game, and we won that game 3-2, and that set the course for one of the best years of my life in recovery was to be able to coach these kids. And like you said, like I kind of found I had a knack for, like you said, it's like one of the things that you were doing is helping these kids navigate themselves, because it was like I felt like I was like a psychologist, because every day at practice, it was some kids not liking this. And I spent half my time dealing with the kids that were like really skilled and easy, and then the kids that couldn't play at all. And you're trying to make everybody feel good and play good. And it really became apparent that I think I was good at like coaching. I thought I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things that helped. I really feel like that helped me with what I'm doing today in my life, is to be able to work with guys.
You know, the reason why coaching, at least for me, it sounds like for you too, had such a profound impact is because it was the first place in maybe a long time that you were able to be a completely different identity.
Yeah.
You didn't associate with anything of the past. You were there, you were present. These kids didn't know anything about you.
Right.
So to them, you're just this coach.
Yeah.
You're not the person that had the rap sheet or the getting this kid taken away from them or going in and out of jail or being strung out or addicted. You weren't that guy. So this is what is beautiful about recovery. That means that we could be anything we want to be.
Yeah. That's an interesting I never really looked at it like that. Yeah, so that's exactly what it was for me. I always tell people, man,
to rewrite your story is the most powerful. So the whole aspect, that the key of willingness, I think what it opens up is our ability to rewrite our story. And I always tell people when they talk about themselves and they share their story, I look at them and I say, guess what? You are not your story.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, I just told you everything about myself. That's who I am. I said, that's only who you've been until this moment.
Right. Yeah.
Who you want to be for the rest of this journey, for the rest of this voyage, is up to you. And it doesn't have to be the past. You can pick and choose some parts of it that might be good, but leave the rest.
Yeah.
Don't over-identify with that identity. It's not who you're going to be. It's not who you are. It's who you need. It's not even who you need to be. Who do you want to be?
Yeah. And, that's like, I think one of the best, the greatest gifts of sobriety is that you get to rewrite your story.
100%, yeah.
100%. And the best part, I think, like, if you were like, when you're dealing with the guys and girls in your treatment center, what are some of the interventions that you like to introduce people to in the beginning? What is so before they come to treatment, let's say you're talking to a family member, what are the interventions that you like to introduce people to just get them to make that first phone call? What are some of the things that you want to suggest?
So to all family members, I always tell them that you're not alone. Even though you feel like you're the only one going through this, you're not. So I always recommend some type of a support group, like an Al-Anon group, almost always. Or a family support group, one that I facilitate at Buckeye. And the reason why I do that is because the shame that family members hold on to when they have a loved one that's addicted, or spouses, is very profound and deep, because they feel inherently something's wrong. They're a bad parent. They did something wrong. And when they hear other parents kind of be a little bit further away from that thought process, it gives them a little hope, the same way we need it.
Right.
The second thing I always tell them is, hey, I know you're waiting for your loved one to hit bottom, but there's ways that you can effectively raise the bottom.
Right.
How can you raise the bottom to help them kind of go from that pre-contemplation stage that you were talking about to contemplation to action? And so that's what I say. And then when the program participant finally comes in, the first assignment I have everyone do is, it says, Dear Haters. It literally says, Dear Haters. It starts off with Dear Haters. That's write a letter to anyone who's ever doubted you, including yourself.
Right. All right. There you go. Yeah.
And I really want them to get deep into like the psychological doubts, the limiting beliefs, the thoughts they have about themselves, the things that have been told to them, what they are, what they're not. Write a letter to all that stuff, and just be able to stand up and read it with assertiveness, with confidence, to believe that you can rewrite your story. And the one thing that I always do is that everything I do, this talk that I'm doing with you right now, when I leave here, when I go back to work, when I go home, when I coach, is dedicated to the possibility of human transformation.
Right.
I believe that all human beings and families can transform who they are, how they live, the way they go about life in any given moment they choose to. And I hope that moment is right now.
I totally agree. I feel like one of the most, the thing that motivates people, there's like the things that are value and motivate us, is proving other people wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, when I heard what you just got done talking about right now, that instantly reminded me of myself and the things that motivated me, because when I was working the steps and I looked at the self-esteem concept, and I know it's like, you know, I had low self-esteem growing up as a kid, but what it really kind of like always kind of draws back to, oh, there's a hair right there. It draws back to, how does that get there like that? It's not so much that I feel less about myself, and I don't feel worthy, as much as it is that I'm placing this value so highly on what other people think. See, that's where my self-esteem is affected most. And as much as it's a bad thing, it's another way. So I feel like a lot of times I come across people that are very, very structured the same way, where they really are concerned about what other people think. And in fact, so much so that the reason that alcohol and drugs are the lubricant, because it makes us feel accepted, it makes us feel a part of. And in recovery, in the same respect, we can also take that same, what could be considered the philosophy of that, you know, I'm allowing other people to affect what I think, say, or do because I'm worried about what they are going to think of me. And even like doing this right now, a lot of times the obstacles in my path into actually going out and pursuing something is because I'm not really worried about success or failure. You know what I'm worried about most? What other people are going to think of me for putting myself out there to do something different. And that's where that moral courage really comes into play. But I can kind of, I guess you could say I could sidestep it, or I can work around it by motivating myself by saying, hey, haters, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you who I can really be. I'm going to set aside all my fear and all my anxiety and all the things that ever held me back, because I want to prove that I am worthy. And it's like I need a vehicle and a platform to do that. And I need the people to support me. And that's kind of like where the opportunity that you had with that man that showed you that what this was what you could look like, and this what you're, and that's kind of like what set you on this journey that you've been on. How does somebody go about like getting their child to really, I mean, is there a way for somebody to make that decision based on information that we give them, or is it something that has to come from within?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of parents want it more for their kid than the kid wants it for themselves at first.
Right.
And that's okay, because that's a part of the process. Until the parents find out that they have no control or power over the decisions of other people, they can influence it somehow. But ultimately, the individual has to say, I'm doing this for myself. And it's okay if someone comes into treatment for someone else at first. It's okay to be externally motivated. But if that external motivation doesn't at some point shift to internal motivation, as soon as the fire's off the back, the pressure's off, everything gets back to normal, that person is going to continue doing exactly what they were doing. So coming in for the mom, the court, the judge, the boss, it's okay at first.
So when you hit them with the hater letter, do you hit them with the, hey, listen, what do you hit them with? You're doing this because I want you to take this and do what?
Transform your life.
Transform your
and
life.
Here's the thing. The biggest hater sometimes exists between our own ears.
Yeah.
You know, self-doubt is a real thing. So the power of what you said about putting yourself out there and doing something like this on this podcast, see, there's a version of you that might be worried about what other people think, or even what you think, you know? And you said you tap into this courage, which courage means taking action despite a fear. You get in front of the camera, you do this, and after recording an episode, what happens is really profound and powerful. Are you the person that's worried about what other people think and can't do this? Or are you the person that just did this? Now there's a binary choice, because you're both of those people. So whichever one you continue to feed from that moment on is the person that's going to get created.
Right.
And I do this all the time. Someone says, hey, I can't get sober past 90 days, past 180 days, past a year. I can't do it. I'm like, all right, challenge them, really, really push them to get beyond that. And now all of a sudden something happens. Are they the person that can't get sober? Or are they the person that just did?
Right.
Because they're both.
They're both, yeah.
And the best one is someone says, I can't pass a class. I suck at school. I'm horrible at it. I've always failed. I've always dropped out. You challenge them. You push them to pass one class. At the end of that class, they're left with a binary choice.
Right.
Are you the person that can't pass a class, or are you the person that just did? And then from that moment, they realize that whichever one they feed is the one they're going to become. And that's how stuff changes. That's how that dear hater thing kind of grows.
That's how it grows.
Yeah. That's the philosophy behind it, at least.
Right, because it sounds like on the front end, you're like, okay, here's what it is. But on the back end, what does it become? Yeah. You know, and it really is, you have to give them, you look at it from the two perspectives. And even what you said to me right now, I just made me think about like, okay, I'm either going to be that guy that's afraid, or the guy that has accomplished it and will continue to keep going and create this new. And I usually lean toward the side of, I'm going to continue to create new. Because
for sure.
What happens in recovery too is once you get the results, and it, like you said, it's like the turtle or the hare, the tortoise or the hare. You know, are you trying to get there really fast? Or are you pacing yourself. And as long as you're persistent, determined, and continue to draw on that experience and build upon it, that's where the true growth comes in.
Yeah.
You know?
And that the African proverb, it says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with others.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, you know, and then all of us, hopefully the goal is to go far in life, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
And the only way we can get there, you know, in that sailboat analogy, when it gets, you know, dark and it gets scary and I'm lost and confused, there better be someone on that damn boat that knows exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's why what I tell parents, like one of the things that I talk to parents when I get them on the phone and I'm talking to them about the journey that they're on with their child, and everybody's, and even parents, they're also in denial. They're in pre-contemplation.
Sure.
They're in contemplation. They're not in action yet either, right? And they ask questions like, "What do I do? What can I do?" And one of the things that I like to always emphasize most is that it's going to take, like you said, if you want to go far, do it with others. You know, what you were just talking about. What I try to emphasize to the family members is that you've got to, whether it's in your prayer life, in your community, you have to ask and speak it into and manifest that your child will connect with other people that he will identify with, that he will see that they were just like him and that they've done these certain things and their life has gotten better, because the message coming from you is just going to sound like white noise. But the most important thing is to get them to be introduced to a group of people that are going to help them navigate their life. And whether it's my treatment center, your treatment center, any treatment center, anybody that's out there, there are so many places that you could go to for recovery. But if the people aren't the right people, go somewhere else, because they're the ones that are going to help make the difference in your life and your child's life. And that's probably the biggest challenge in treatment today, is that there's so many different people working in the business, right, that have different motivations and different modalities of treatment. And literally, sometimes there's, you know, I mean, our industry is basically, since you've been around, you've watched it go from when Obamacare came into effect and insurance became accessible to everybody, and there were no longer the waiting periods, the seasoning of an insurance policy. It used to be a thing where you'd sign up for an insurance policy and it would have to season for months before it became active and that you could actually use it for certain procedures, and treatment being one of them, where one of the nice things about 2014 is the moment, you know, the Healthcare Parity Act and a couple of other, I forget the name of the other one, but it made it accessible within a 30-day period. You know, on the 15th, if you'd gotten your sign up for insurance, now on the 1st of next month, you could go to treatment and get full coverage, full services. And they can't deny you for that. And I think that, I don't know where I was going with that. Sometimes I lose track of my thoughts.
Man, it's
but
for the industry, you're talking about
the industry.
Yeah.
Trustworthy. Yeah, I was talking about the finding the right place for you to bring your family member to, and knowing that I'm not for everybody, you know, for sure, and my style isn't for everybody, and because every child, every family member is going to respond to different people in different ways. And I think it's really important to let people know that, just like getting a second opinion, going to a different doctor, you are not beholden to the group that you went to. If there's something wrong and you don't feel it's right, you need to get into the hands of the people that really care.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like one of the most important things that people can realize, is that they're not subjected to just like this one place and this one ideology, because there's so many different ways to get recovery today. But I do feel like it's the most important thing is getting with the right people, because you want to go far, you do it with the right people.
Absolutely. And we've used the word recovery a bunch of times, so I just want to share kind of what my working definition of the word recovery is.
Yeah, let's do that.
You know, a lot of people ask the question all the time to program participants, family members, hey, what does recovery mean to you? It's a great question to ask them.
Yeah.
And usually the answers are related to the discontinuation of drugs and alcohol, or just kind of getting healthier, mind, body, spirit. That's the kind of stuff people say for the most part. But I like to use the definition found in the dictionary. So when you look at the word recover, it means to regain something that's been lost, stolen, or destroyed.
Right.
So then it becomes, okay, what is it that we're trying to regain?
Yeah.
It's our connection to ourselves. So all human beings at some point in life, we get disconnected from ourselves. It could have been some type of a trauma. It could have been some type of a upbringing thing, some grief and loss. It could have just been a dysfunctional family system. we get disconnected from ourselves. And we go through many different ways trying to fill that with people, places, and things like we talked about to feel whole and complete. But most people, I mean, we've been to enough meetings ourselves to know people stand in front of the mirror towards the end of their using, and they can't recognize the reflection looking back at them. And they don't know who that person is. So actually, it's a stranger. But we've been to enough meetings to watch people take a cake, 2 cakes, and they say, I can finally look at myself in the mirror again.
Yeah. They can finally look at each other, like look at you eye to eye.
Because you reconnect to self that at one point was lost, stolen, or destroyed. So that's the whole point of all of this.
So go over the definition of recovery again. That seems like a word. And I was talking about this earlier about how powerful words are and understanding the word and then applying it. Because once you put a value, we're talking about that word, the word value again, when you said that, you talked about suffering and losing value. A lot of the times, the most important thing is about words. And when a word, once you understand the definition of a word, it then has value to you, and then it becomes something that you will pursue and that you will want and that you will buy into. Yeah. So one more time.
I'll even make it a little bit better. So
make it better.
The recovery process.
Right.
So let's first look at process. A series of actions and steps taken in a specific order to achieve a certain outcome. Now, the question mark becomes, what outcome is that?
Yeah.
The definition of recover. To regain something that's been lost, stolen, or destroyed. So you put both of those things together.
Yeah.
A series of actions and steps taken in a specific order to achieve a certain outcome, to regain something that's been lost, stolen, or destroyed.
So powerful. Bam. I'm like just going to be like one of the, it's so incredibly awesome. I love words, and I love the way you broke that down. That is so powerful, because you know what's funny is even though this is for other people, I am getting so much. I feel like I'm getting a free therapy session right now, because what I'm learning is the things that I love, and that's words, definitions, and the processes that it takes. That is so powerful because it has value to me now. I will look it up. I will study it, because that is what it takes for me to have and improve my life, is to get new information from people that are smarter than me, you know, that have more experience than me, that will share openly. What everybody out there that's listening right now just got priceless information.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. This is also another nice saying.
Yeah.
So the illiterate of the future, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Is not someone who cannot read or write. It is someone who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah.
So, you know, we always think if, you know, illiterate is someone that can't read or write. We know that.
Yeah.
But as we continue to progress in our own recovery, in our own life, in our own journey, if you can't learn a bunch of things in life and honestly look at it and say, you know what, I need to unlearn some of this.
Yeah.
And then once it's unlearned, I need to relearn the healthy version of this by surrounding myself with
100%.
And then all of a sudden you become someone that's a man of wisdom, woman of wisdom, knowledge, power, you know, that actually transform.
You know, there's a prayer that we say like before a meeting that I have. It's called the set aside prayer. Have you ever heard that?
Oh,
God,
absolutely.
please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, these steps, and especially you, for an open mind and a new experience with myself, my disease, these steps, and especially you. And I always say to people, hey, why don't we use that? We could interchange any type of word we want with disease, steps, God, and we could turn it into, we could just like literally create a mantra, a prayer, a meditation, to really ingrain these philosophies into our head, to just set aside, just to have that new experience and have an open mind. Because one of the things you were talking about, the illiteracy, is somebody who can't learn, unlearn, and relearn, essentially, right? Is the whole component of what we're here to do right now. Is like learn how to, and I used to say this all the time to people, I reserve the right to change my mind on any given subject at any given time based on a new set of principles, ideas, information that is going to effectively enhance my life. Because one of the obstacles to success is, well, any type of preconceived idea that I'm not allowing to let go of. And I think that that's the problem with our society today, is we develop these subjective opinions.
Contempt prior to investigation.
Yeah, that's it. Contempt prior. That's like,
you want to use the book?
Yeah, it is. It's true though, right? It's like, who said that? Herbert.
It's in the spiritual experience.
Spiritual experience. Yeah, that's how it all ends. It's like, that's, you know, I mean, sometimes that's where I think my love for like the way things are written out. I never really looked or examined words or some of the things that is in that book particularly just blow my mind the way they put it together.
Yeah.
Contempt prior to investigation. That's like, who thought of that?
Powerful.
That's powerful.
You know, if you like words too, and maybe the audience will like this one. So addiction.
Addiction.
You know, when you look at the roots of the word addiction. So I ask people, hey, what does addiction mean to you? And they have all these definitions. And I say, okay, let's use the words.
Yeah.
When you look at the word addiction, it goes back to a Latin word called addictus. And addictus, here's what it actually meant back in the day. So let's say you borrowed, you gave me some money, and I owed you some money.
Yeah.
You come and say, hey, Parham, you got that $100 I gave you? And I say, sorry, man, I don't have it right now. You're like, no worries, you're a good guy. I'll come back next month. You come back next month, you got the $100? I say, sorry, I don't. You're like, hey, man, I can't do this anymore. You take me to court. I go to court. The judge says, what's going on?
Yeah.
You say, I gave this guy $100. He never paid me back. And I say, I don't have the money. So the judge says, Parham, you are now addictus to rich. So here's what that means. You are enslaved to.
Yeah.
So addiction
means enslaved.
Means enslaved. And that's where the word comes from. And we look at our histories with drugs and alcohol and people that are actively using. I mean, isn't it a form of slavery?
It is 100% a form of slavery. Yeah.
It is. And you ask any slave in the world, I mean, I haven't had a conversation with one, but what's the one thing you want in life?
Freedom.
They're not going to say car, money, job, relationship, guy, none of that stuff. They want freedom.
Freedom.
And the moment you stop your active addiction, you've actually gotten what it is that you're looking for. Now, what you choose to do with that freedom is up to you. You know,
it's that the analogy you gave and the story you gave is really powerful because it visualizes the fact that a lot of times, well, sometimes there's the choice of not being able to pay back can sometimes in that scenario be that I just don't have the resources.
Sure.
With addiction, the definition that we have today is like, I don't know if you guys spent much time watching Unwoven Pleasures,
sure, yeah.
Pleasures Unwoven.
Yeah.
And it talks about the inability to, not that it's a disease of choice, but it's not that we make bad choices, but we have a disease of choice.
Sure.
That we choose we make the wrong choice, not because we want to, but because we can't make the right choice because there's something that's broken in the midbrain. Do you guys, what are your thoughts on that subject?
I mean, I do believe in some of the theory. So the midbrain, the survival, the let's just say the what exists inside the brain of a human being. I do believe in that a little bit. Right. I do believe in a genetic part also. However, both of these theories have one thing missing. They don't look at the environment. Right. And human beings develop in a moment by moment by moment interaction with the environment. So our brains actually develop as we're growing up.
Yeah.
And I believe the things that we experience and encounter throughout life changes the way our brain functions and operates. And that's where the traumas come, the little traumas, the big traumas. So trauma on some level, I think, is the thing that changes the brain. It's not the addiction part of it. And I think the addiction is that solution to that changed brain. And that's what I truly believe in. Don't get me wrong, the disease model is researched and it's out there, and the AMA accepted it, and I'm well familiar with what the model is.
Yeah.
However, I don't like not looking at the environment because we are nothing without the environment.
Right. Yeah.
And the reason why we don't look at the environment often is because it's hard to get the environment into treatment. You can only get the individual in.
Right.
Do the best with what you got.
Right. Yeah. So that kind of goes along with what's the thing about Rat City.
Oh, for sure. Connection.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, in the end, it's like that really does like kind of, I think for myself, I know that I'm not a victim. I was a participant in my environment because I latched on immediately to a group of people. Like you said, when you first got into high school and all of a sudden you found, hey, alcohol and drugs. Now I feel like now I'm part of the environment that I want to be a part of. And that becomes at first it's always fun and games though. It's always, hey, this is just, I'm having fun, I'm getting girls, I'm being accepted, I'm doing this. But then at some point in some people, not everybody, it becomes like, you know, I'm going to hope to die junkie. I'm going to set aside food, shelter, clothing, relationships, everything. None of that matters anymore. It's overridden all my processes and
the hijacked brain.
The hijacked brain.
Sure.
And that's what they taught. It's like your brain's hijacked. And, you know, whether you want to be a good parent, doesn't matter. You want to be a good son, doesn't matter. You want to be a good student, it doesn't care.
Yeah, so I agree with that part. And that part just looks at the end result.
Right.
But I think prior to it becoming hijacked, there was a lot. And that's why I say, well, the discontinuation of drugs and alcohol, it doesn't resolve everything that happened prior to that. And that's where the deep work is. I mean, you can get through it through the steps. Individual therapy is really good. Trauma work is really good.
Yeah.
But to find out why can't I regulate my own emotions? You know, why do I have so much anger? Why?
That's all of society, though, right? Isn't it all of society? We are stuck in that right now more than ever. Emotional regulation is like, I don't think people even like right now. It's out of control.
Yeah.
Like it's out of control.
It's It is impossible to understand addictions without finding out what it is the person finds or hopes to find from the drink, the drug, or the addictive behavior. For everyone, it's relief.
Right.
So the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. And everyone that's in pain, this is not just drug addicts.
Right.
They're in some type of a pain. Now, they might cope it with food.
Exactly.
Food addiction is way worse than a drug addiction. You know, people, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, heart attacks, way more people die from food-related issues than with drugs and alcohol. I mean, not even, it's like a sixfold.
Right.
But we don't want to talk about it because if you eat too much food, it's acute. All he likes food.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Shopping's the same way. You know, sex is the same way. Workaholism's the same way. Mm-hmm. People going from, running away from their problems the same way. We're all dealing with it.
Right.
What I struggle with is with the individual that they're, bodily or mentally different than other people, maybe on some level, but we're all the same. And that creates a separation, that stigma that I'm working through to be able to break through demonstrating that all of us are human beings going through the human experience.
Right.
Some of us cope with drugs and alcohol. Some of us cope with food. Some of us cope with sex, or some of us cope with shopping. But at the end of the day, we're all the same. And until we get to that point, I don't think we're going to be able to break that stigma.
Right. You think it'll ever, like when you say we're all the same and we're dealing with, so this idea that this permeates our environment basically, because if we're thinking the environment has a profound impact and effect on where people end up basically, because it's true, it does, but only to the extent if society had to do something different, society, right? That creates the rules, the regulations, the things we watch on TV, the information we get from social media. What would be like a beginning point, a starting point where we could start altering or shifting the environment to create a more healthy, more loving, more kind, and more tolerant and respect for each other, so that we don't have so much anxiety and fear-driven society that we're living in right now, which is really exasperating and I would say kind of escalating this condition of mind, where we need to escape, right? Because really the alcoholic is looking to escape his situation. I don't want to have to, it's like not wanting to open my mail because I don't want to pay the bills. It's like not wanting to go home because I'm going to fight with my wife, or I'm going to fight with my whoever's there, or I have to go to work and I'm not unhappy in this job. And so when I leave the job, I'm going to go drink and I'm going to find that relief. And then, I'll get up and I'll do it again. So what's going on, do you think? Like what's happening, especially when you look on a global basis, when you look at different cultures, something that you brought up earlier, which was that in your culture, nobody talked about feelings. Yeah. Nobody was dealing with addiction, and it's probably still kind of very similar.
Some cultures are even worse than that.
Yeah, in some cultures even worse than that. And it's like, so here we are on this incredibly huge hamster wheel, rat race. You can come up with every little cliche there is. Yeah. How can it ever go away?
I think with making a collective decision that all things are healthy to talk about. Because what happens is we think that certain things are morally bad, or you're not supposed to talk about them, or it's not good, or it's unhealthy, or if you talk about it, it becomes real. And we put these labels on things.
Yeah.
And the reality is a lot of parents don't talk to their kids about drugs and alcohol. Right. A lot of parents don't talk to their kids about sex. A lot of parents don't talk to their kids about, different cultures and different religions and different this and that. They just don't.
Yeah.
And then where do kids get that information from? Right. They're going to get it.
Yeah.
They're going to get exposed to it.
Right.
Schools don't want to do it. Parents don't want to do it. Society doesn't want to do it. Like nothing real ever gets translated to people. It's always just things to distract us and things to keep us kind of like, in la la land. So until the real conversations start happening on a societal level without worrying that there's some, judgment to it. There's some stigma to it. There's some, you're going to hurt someone's feelings.
So like what you said, you say it one more time, say that we can discuss things. Say that one more time.
We can take off the labels of discussing this is good or bad.
Right.
Or this is like right or wrong.
Right.
We got to discuss it.
Yeah.
And
being able to discuss things without
openly.
Yeah, open discussions without like labeling a person like in any way. And that is the whole, I think that's a great starting point right there.
It's a beautiful starting point.
Instead of like focusing on like the actual, like I think I was talking earlier about this, people get fixated on the differences, and they only talk about the differences, and they get impassioned and enraged and inflamed, and they're not openly discussing, hey, it's okay to think this way, it's okay to think this way, and not take offense to it, and not try to label the other person. And that's the whole problem right now in our society.
You know, it's like in a school system, for example, if one kid's doing substances, they're going to say, stay away from that kid, he's a bad kid.
Yeah.
But the other kid might be playing 12 hours of video games.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not a bad kid.
Right, it's not a bad kid.
They're both escaping the heck out of their lives.
Exactly, you're right, exactly.
So until we say that these two kids are the same, they're just coping with life a different way. And it comes from, you know, a healed society in a group of like parents. So parents got to do the work. And I say this, when a parent comes in, they're here for their loved one.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I allow them, when the group goes around, the first time they say, my name is so-and-so, I'm here for my son or my spouse.
Yeah.
The next time that circle comes around, if they come back, they say, I'm here for myself. That's a commitment they have to make.
Right.
And they say, well, I'm not here for myself. I'm like, trust me, you are. And because when the family changes, when they learn how to communicate, when they process their own past, they're able to talk about things they otherwise weren't able to talk about. The next generation learns it. The next generation, because at some point we got to break these multi-generational patterns of dysfunctional communication.
100%.
If we don't, we won't.
Yeah, and we're going to be stuck in that pattern for a long time. Hey, listen, I want to go ahead and we're going to wrap things up right now. We had a really good, this has been a good hour or so of time. I think that
we probably could have talked for like 4 hours
straight. We
can't
can talk for 4 hours straight. So the nice thing is like the idea is to continue to build and develop and grow together, and just hang out and just kind of like go to the next level. You don't want to do it like all in one time. Yeah. But I'm really excited you were willing to come in, because you definitely have enlightened my life, and I'm hoping that the people that are going to watch, like, subscribe, share this video will be able to extract and implement some of the tools that we've discussed and the ideas and philosophies that will help, that have already changed our lives, and we know that we've had an effect on other people. But if you're out there right now, take what you've learned, share with other people, and join us here next week as we kind of do the slow and steady voyage together of life. So I want to thank you guys for all coming in, and those of you who were able to watch this show, that's great. There's probably 1 or 2 people, but that's okay, because it's the journey.
Absolutely, man.
And we know where we're going. So anyway, thanks for joining us.
That's all I got, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to coming here on another day and contributing the best I can.
That was awesome. All right, thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.
Good stuff.